The Butterfly by Patricia Polacco. It was unusually bright that night outside of Monique's small bedroom window in Choisy-le-Roi, just outside of Paris. The moon was so radiant it seemed almost festive. As Monique gazed up at it, she thought that the moon must not know that her village was occupied by Nazi troops. All of France was, for that matter. There was a terrible war raging in what, to Monique, seemed like most of the world. But this night the moon seemed not to care. She pulled Pinouf, her cat, up next to her, and hugged and kissed her good night, then drifted off to sleep. Monique didn't quite know why she woke up, but suddenly she saw a ghostly little figure sitting just next to the window on the end of her bed. A girl about her own age. She was petting Pinouf. "Who are you?" Monique whispered. The ghost child wheeled and looked with sad eyes that seemed frightened, then spun and ran from the bedroom. So in looking at this picture, you can see the two girls that's looking out the window. So in your mind, after I read this and seeing the pictures, how would you describe these two girls? The next morning at breakfast, Monique could hardly wait to talk to her mother about the ghost. But her mother seemed almost angry. It wasn't like Marcel Souluge to be angry at anyone. It was only a dream, child. Do you hear? Only a dream. Now, go to school. God knows how much longer you will have the privilege of going to school with the war. Her mother's voice trailed off. Monique couldn't wait to get to school so that she could tell her best friend Denise about the ghost. Since Monique was an only child, Denise was like a sister to her. On their way home from school that afternoon, Denise asked Monique, "What did this ghost look like?" "She was dark and had very sad eyes," Monique answered. "Weren't you very, very frightened?" Denise asked. "At first, yes, but the longer I looked at her, a feeling came over me. A feeling of fear for her," Monique answered. So how is Séverine and Monique alike, and how are they different? They stopped and peered into the front window of Monsieur Marc's candy store. He waved them in as he always did. He loved the children in the neighborhood and always had small bits of brightly wrapped candies for them in his apron pocket. As the girls entered the store, they saw that most of the jars that used to be filled with every kind of candy and confection were empty. The war. But Monsieur Marx had saved something for them. "For you, little Monique," Monsieur Marx cooed as he dropped a bright dot of sweetness into her hand. "And one for you, ma petite," he said, as the beautifully wrapped confection rolled into Denise's waiting hands. Monique and Denise unwrapped their candies and popped them into their mouths. But as they were walking away from the store, they suddenly saw tall boots coming toward them up the hill. So why did they just see the tall boots? Why didn't they see who was in the tall boots? The tall, shining boots of marching Nazi soldiers. Their heels clicked like gunshots along the cobblestone path. People froze and tried not to look at the soldiers. The girls wanted to run, but knew better. They had learned to chat and laugh as if they had no cares in the world. "Are they looking for us?" Monique asked breathlessly when they had gotten a distance away. Denise looked back. "No, they're still marching." Then they heard loud yelling and glass breaking. They both wheeled and looked. To their horror, they saw Monsieur Marx being dragged from his shop by the Nazi soldiers. Schwinn! Juden Schwinn! They heard the Nazis shout as they pushed Monsieur Marx to the ground. They watched the Nazis kick him hard in the ribs with those tall, black boots. Monique covered her mouth to hold back a scream. Then a car drove up and the Nazis threw Monsieur Marx into the back of it. Don't look for too long, Monique, Denise warned. If we do, they'll come for us next. So where do you think they're taking Monsieur Marx? The girls were both sobbing by the time they ran up Rue de Bernard to Monique's mother's house. They knew it had happened before during these years of the occupation, but they had never seen it. And to Monsieur Marx, why, maman, did they do that to Monsieur Marx? Monique choked through sobs. The Nazis hate people like Monsieur Marx, ma chérie. It is so pointless and cruel. Her voice faded to a whisper. What do you mean, people like Monsieur Marx, maman? Monique asked again. You know, Monique, her mother answered. Jews. But Monsieur Marx is a Frenchman, Denise said. Marcel hugged them both. The Nazis can't be here forever, my sweet children. Mother France has been here for centuries. They, for a short, terrible time. Marcel had tears in her eyes. Now, I'll fix you some soothing tea. Monsieur Marx would not want either of you to worry or be sad. Madame, a voice called from the front door. It was Pierre Villard, their priest from Saint Germain-des-Prés. He rushed in. Have you heard what happened to Monsieur Marx? Marcel motioned to him to come into the other room, and they closed the door. Monique was used to her mother having hushed conversations in the living room, especially since the war. So why do you think he asked, or she asked him to go into a room and sit privately? Many nights passed, and Monique didn't see the little ghost again. But late one night, Monique awoke with a start to see her little ghost sitting on the window seat. This time it was holding Panouf. Monique thought, this is no dream. I can hear Panouf purring. I see you there, Monique whispered. The little ghost sprang to her feet, but Monique stopped her from running away this time. Don't be afraid. It's all right for you to be here. The little ghost with sad eyes sat down and said nothing. What is your name? Where do you come from? Monique asked. The girl just sat for the longest time, holding on tightly to Panouf. I once had a cat just like this one, she finally said. Her name is Panouf. What is yours? Monique sat down beside her. My name is Savine. Savine. Where do you live? Monique whispered. I have lived in many places since the war, the ghostly Savine answered. Where do you live now? Your parents must miss you, especially in the middle of the night like this. The girl didn't answer. Where do you live? Monique insisted. Here, Savine finally said. Here? Monique said with such surprise and so loudly that it might have awakened the whole neighborhood. But I live here.